Hey everyone, thanks for coming back. Welcome back to our podcast. This is Joe Nix here and hosting with Dan. Introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Excited to be here today and kind of continuing this process of just kind of figuring out what we're doing and talking about the things in our life and how we're kind of continuing to grow and challenge ourselves as we kind of figure out what this podcast looks like in more detail, and excited to share that with other people.
Yeah, so much so. Dan and I, over the last couple of weeks in doing the other podcast, have kind of come up with just some ideas that are on our plates right now, things we're actively doing that we're interested in talking about. And one of those things was accountability aids, is kind of how I want to approach that topic. We'll get into kind of accountability and how that's worked for us, hasn't worked for us in the past, and what the kind of desire behind having systems in place and or people just to help us move forward and attain goals, to focus on what it is that we are passionate about moving forward in, and just setting up systems in that fashion.
Yeah, nice. I think that's, you like hit it. It's like the idea of just systems, and like so many things in my life, it's like any goals I want to achieve, like it always comes back to like, what are the systems I'm going to put in place to get there? Actually, like, can have these great goals and all these ideas, but like if I don't actually sit down and put down like step by step, like what I want to do to get there, I feel like it never happens. And I think, this idea of accountability is like a cool way of fitting that in there. And it's essentially just having, I don't know, getting other people to help you out with it, which is cool.
It is really cool. And just I think it's a really neat way to just spend some time focusing on what it is you want to achieve. I think, as we've spoken about in podcasts before, just the desire of spending our time, spending our effort on things that actually mean something to us, as opposed to just kind of waking up and kind of filling out tasks, until bedtime and then doing it again the next day. Just like trying to actually spend some time orienting ourselves and discovering what it is internally that we are trying to achieve and desire, and then with that in mind, setting up systems that move those things forward. And I think one of the cool things about accountability, coming from a place of growth orientation, and then just coming also out of something that is actually desired by the individual doing it, is that it has kind of checks and balances built into it. I think it's really key to realize that you can adjust these systems as need be as you move forward, as you realize that maybe something you were doing doesn't really help you move that much closer to your goal than you thought it did. You can adjust that. You can take it away. You can modify it. You can remove it completely from your daily or weekly activities. And just, I think it's super important in this process that you do consistently check back in with your own systems and make sure that they're still serving you and serving what it is you desire out of them.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think my weekly, if I'm not doing something, I'll tend to, just ignore it and like not address like the why behind, like, why am I not doing this thing? Like, I think anything in my life that I've identified as something I want to be doing, and then if I don't do it, I think it's important to look at like, why is that happening? Like, where is that coming from? Because if I truly want to do it, then I need to set up systems and ways to get it done. But if I keep avoiding it, maybe it's not something I really want to be doing, or I'm not ready to be doing yet. Which I think it's important to like always go back and look at those things. But I think that's why like documenting these things is so important, that like if I don't actually document it, it's so easy for me to convince myself like, oh, I think I did that this week, or like, I'm sure I like, whatever, meditation or something. It's like, I think I did that a couple of times last week. And then like when I start documenting actually, and you see like, oh, it was like twice last week that I actually meditated. And it's like, that's fine. And like, but it's a good way to like check in and be like, this is where I'm really at.
I love that that it can be something that is and should be, in my eyes, should be self-affirming. I mean, these things should should relate to what it is we desire. They should be activities that we are engaged in and excited about doing. And as you said before, like if you start noticing through your tracking that there's something that you're not doing or putting off, like that's a great opportunity just to sit with that and ask why and be curious of why it's not happening. As you said, is it something you're not ready for yet? Is it something you actually don't want to do? Is it something that hasn't you're not finding meaningful in the actual activity itself? And those all kind of give you insights to look into it deeper and see how you can modify that. So for those listeners out there who might be confused about what we're talking about, some examples of these systems we're talking about are like just having maybe a good example that is like a morning checklist for what you want to do when you wake up before you start work. Can you tell us about some systems you've set up, Dan, just as examples for what some of these could be?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of like my real estate business, I'm following like a model based on ninja selling. It's from a real estate company in Fort Collins, Colorado, actually, called The Group. And I think their systems are awesome. It's all about kind of developing relationships and a lot of focus on mindset. So I have kind of like a Ninja 9 is what they call it. It's the 9 things you're supposed to do every week. And some of them are daily tasks. And so I just have a checklist that I look at every morning and make sure I'm doing. And so it's usually, yeah, it depends on the activity, but it's usually right when I get into the office or wherever I'm working that day. And I start there before doing anything else, before email, before talking to anyone. So it's doing, let's see, what do we start with? Like gratitudes. So I have a small gratitude journal, just try to think back. And a lot of this, it's all about just getting in the right headspace. And so starting with gratitudes, and then I do affirmations. I read some type of kind of like motivational or something to kind of continue to help with mindset. What else is it? There's like meditation. So I just have like a Google Doc. It's the easiest way for me to keep track of it. And I just look at it every morning, make sure, and I go through it and tick it off. And kind of then at the end of the week, I reflect back and see, did I actually do the things I wanted to do, or were there gaps somewhere, and then try to like reflect on that.
So I think that's an amazing example. Dan and I were speaking earlier about these different topics and just different ways that these systems can come into play, like where they really show up and help you move toward that goal. And I think it's really easy to not put the work in initially to figure out your own system, to figure out what it is, first you want to be desiring, and then, B, what are activities that you can daily do to move you toward that. Obviously, if I think a lot of people are probably familiar with them in workout goals or weight loss type things, or having different strategic points that they're working toward in developing muscle or losing weight, and doing 50 setups a day, or 100 push-ups, or run a quarter mile, or jog a mile, whatever that is. I think a lot of people are used to looking at it that way, and this is just another way of kind of viewing a similar process, but to achieve things either in your personal world, or like Dan was describing earlier, a specific business, and moving forward in that. And I think there's a lot of somewhat hidden benefit to these. And I think one of the biggest that Dan and I were talking about is just like when there is mental fatigue just from the rest of life. So there's a lot going on in your life, and there's a lot of decision-making fatigue about what it is you want to be doing or should be putting your time forward. One of the great benefits of this and these systems is that you've already done that work. You've already isolated these different activities as ones that you feel like are necessary to growing your business. And so you kind of just fall into the pattern. You allow yourself to just step into this system you've already created and participate.
Yeah. I think that's like the biggest thing of like not working like a W-2 job is like, you don't have like a boss that like tells you what to do. Like I can do whatever I want all day long if I wanted to. And like, there's awesome freedom in that, but there's also like, there's like a level of stress that just comes with like, I've got to make a decision every day about the activities that I'm doing. And the checklist just takes away all that stress. Like I don't think about my morning. What am I going to do? Like I just sit down and open my checklist and I know, okay, it's time to meditate. And I just sit there and meditate. Like it's great and super easy. And I feel like, yeah, it takes away so much stress, which is like so cool. And so many of the times, like, yeah, it's like systems and they feel, I don't know. I think for me, I see them as like constraining sometimes. And it's always like, oh, like, I don't want to, like, that's going to like lock me into something. But in reality, it like, I don't know, it's weird how much it's like freedom giving actually. And that if I have this structure, then I don't know, frees up my mind to do other things. And I'm not worrying about like these small details.
That's a fantastic point. And I think it really speaks to the why, which we really come back to a lot, or just like the mindset surrounding why you're doing something. I think the if your mindset is self-growth, is furthering your own goals and desires in
Mhm.
life, and you're consistently reflecting back on that and making sure these things align with that, like they are inspiring things, they are
Yeah.
things that you consistently, get energy from, enjoy from the actual of doing it. And I'm not saying like with any system like you're going to show up every day and enjoy performing, those different tasks or whatever, but more often than not, I think it becomes something that is joy giving, is life giving, is
Yeah.
moving you toward that desire you have. And
So
Dan and I both talked about just like even the word accountability. I think for some people can have just some barbs and things on it that they, you know, from ways they've encountered that term in past life or earlier, that just may not love the idea of jumping into accountability. But it really, I think so much of that comes from perspective and why it's being used. The idea in this is in no way for someone else um, to have designs on what you're doing, or for someone else to control, what your activities are, or what direction you're heading in, or what your orientation should be. This is you. This is you deciding, what you're individually about, what you want to do with your life, how you want to show up in your job, how you want to show up in your leisure time, what do you want to do in 5 years, what do you want to do in 10. Are you doing things daily that participate that, and just remembering that this is about expansion, it's about growth, this is
yeah,
not about narrowing, it's not about refining, it's not about limiting yourself to things, but doing the things that actually help you expand.
yeah. That's, I feel like a couple months ago, I got into like a bad headspace about like my like morning routine, and it became like a box I had to check, and I was just like doing it because I needed to. And I'd lost perspective that like of like my why, like why was I doing it? And I knew like I was doing it because I believed it was good for me and a part of a beneficial system. But I lost like, I don't know, like the why in the moment of the idea of like gratitudes and affirmations. Like these are designed like to get me in the right like headspace in the morning so that I'm in like a like high positive mental state. Like I love that concept of, I don't, yeah, it's like high versus low and then positive versus negative mental space. It's like a quadrant. And like I think just yeah, the goal is to, you can't always be in the high positive, like that's not a reality. um but you're going to produce your best work or do your best when you are in that, and there are things you can do to get in that headspace. And for me, the yeah, meditation, affirmations, those are all things that help me get in that space. I feel like when I like reframed it and realized like, oh no, like that's why I'm doing these, like not because it's I'm supposed to, it's because of what it does for me right now. I feel like yeah, it makes it so much more meaningful and enjoyable. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think, in a practical way, for those of you who are already implementing some of these self accountability, or even doing it with another person, just really encourage you to not only stay the course in that, but just maybe bring new eyes to it. Just
Mm.
re-examine what it is you're doing daily and desiring to do, just with some curiosity, and
Mm,
that curiosity being really just focused toward, is this, are these things you're doing aligned with where you want to be, not only right now but also in the future? And I think like that's one of the neatest tools you can use when examining things in your own life, just to see if it fits, see if it's still energetically where you want to be putting your time.
yeah. What about you? What are things you're doing to like, I don't know, or yeah, how do you see accountability like coming up in your life?
That's a great question. I think a lot of this has come out of just realizing what we were talking about before, just like um, just the overall stress that can come up in daily life. And I think like it's really for anyone anywhere, regardless of job or relationship status. I think, you know, stress is just a part of our daily lives. Like it, how much there is or how much we allow it in, or it dictates what we do. Like that's a huge sliding scale. But just realizing like how active, and how, um, I don't know, overwhelming, like I think our work lives can be in life, is
Mm,
really what's brought me to desiring something like this, just because I felt overwhelmed a lot, just with the amount of things that I'm actually desiring to do and trying to do in life.
mm,
You know, can just, it can feel like I'm not moving forward, or I'm not getting there, and just spinning my wheels. So one thing that has really helped me is like coming up with just different daily activities. And so my morning checklist, I think, is similar to yours, you know, and starting with gratitudes. And that really has a whole lot to do with just, as Dan said, like just shaping the mental patterns, and choosing what you want to be thinking about, choosing to think about gratitude, and things that are exciting you in life, and things that you were aware of happening and developing in your life, as opposed to focusing on things that aren't going well. And it's incredible. It's such a simple task, but it's incredible how powerful it can be in reorienting mind space, energy. Um, so I think that's really first for me. And then the meditation piece, just setting aside, um, 5 to 15 minutes is really my daily goal at this juncture of just meditation time to be
mm.
present, and connect with myself, and in a stillness, and not in a rush, not trying to achieve anything, not trying to check a box off,
Mm,
outside of being present. And I think that's
yeah,
similar to the gratitudes, of very much a mindset, foundation thing for just how I want to start and orient my day. And then from there, like it goes into like health things, trying to walk and do a certain amount of push-ups and sit-ups every day, is just a desire just to stay um, somewhat active in my day in day out. Like there's
mm,
um, sports I play platform tennis a couple times a week, and really enjoy that. So and ski some. Like there's other things I do um, that are bigger physical efforts, but just I think trying to have a baseline, just so that every day
mm.
I do something for my body, intentionally moving it. And those things have been really helpful, um, in just kind of keeping my mind and body engaged in what it is I'm doing. And more recently, I've come up with other things to add to that, like cryptocurrencies and Web3
Mhm.
are super interesting to me right now, and another area I'm kind of just diving into. But like a lot of things in life, it seems overwhelming initially, just because there's so much information out there and so many people doing different things, and everybody has an opinion. So just not knowing where to start. Um, my initial entry in my daily activity things is spend 5 minutes learning about crypto. So
Yeah,
that's
I
where
think
I'm at.
that's
Like
awesome. Yeah,
I'll watch a YouTube video, I'll read an article, and just they're tiny things, but I've been doing that for 3 or 4 weeks now, and my education is it's progressing. Like I know so
Yeah.
much more than I did when I started, and it's only 5 minutes a day. I think like that's the other amazing thing in setting up these kind of desires and activities is that it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, if it's
No, not at
2 or 3 minutes participation in something you want to do in 5 or 6 years or in your future is a lot. Um, and it's willful and it's a choice you're making in your life and you're putting, energy in that direction. I think that's an important piece.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think, yeah, that idea of like starting small is so important. Like, I think my like task list now is like I've got like 12 things I do every morning, which like sounds intense and like would have been really intense if I'd like implemented all 12 in the beginning and tried
Right.
to like go from like zero to like all of them in a single day. And like, and that's my personality. I wanted to do that and want to do those things. But then if I miss one, then I also just throw it all out. I'm like, well, like I didn't work out today, so I might as well like have 5 beers and eat McDonald's for dinner. Like just like so stupid. Like it doesn't make sense. That's just but that's I think starting small and growing those is like where it's at. Like the I don't know. Yeah, I remember when I tried to start meditating and it was like starting with like 10 minutes a day is foolish. Like it's hard and it's just starting with like 1 minute a day and like that's it. And knowing that like my goal is just to do that. And next week maybe I'll bump it to 2 or something like that. I think that starting small and gradual is huge and it adds up. Like you said, like 5 minutes of reading about crypto a day, like that adds up really fast. And all of a
Really
sudden you've
does.
spent hours and hours reading about something and learning about it, which is really cool.
It is. And I think we've actually talked about this before, but we both have recently read, I think you may have just reread Atomic Habits.
So
Do
good.
you remember the author's name offhand?
Uh, I don't, yeah.
We'll note it in the footnotes, but he it just I think that was Dan actually suggested that book to me, and I was really impacted. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is he was suggesting that where he feels like a lot of people actually struggle with starting habits and where they fail is trying to do too much initially. And so like Dan was talking about like that with meditating, starting with 10 minutes. If you've never meditated before, expecting yourself to meditate for 10 minutes a day it may not sound like it, but it's relatively lofty. Like that's a long time to sit and be confused about what it is you're doing, potentially, for the initial time, and setting a 1 minute mark is a whole lot more achievable just to get the practice started. And it's not about how much you're doing. It's about participating with it and making a choice. I think it's very back to the working out. I think most of us probably relate to that well. If you haven't run in 5 or 6 years or ever and start out with a goal of running 2 miles a day, you may do that for 2 or 3 days, but more than likely it's not a habit you can keep up
You're
from
gonna
that
be
point,
hurting.
just out of fatigue or injury. I mean, if you haven't run a whole lot and go to running 2 miles a day, chances are real good you're going to hurt yourself. And so he, in the book, Atomic Habits, he starts talking about like, let's tone that not a little bit back, but like a whole lot back. How about you start that habit with putting on your running shoes? Do that every day
Love that. Yeah.
for a week before you even leave the house. And then your next week is put on your running shoes and leave the house. You don't even run. You just go outside. You do that for a week. And then after that, you walk and you just incrementally build up. And it may sound silly, but I think it gives you such a better chance of actually having success and being able
Mm.
to see your success, show up for it every day, check it off, and really kind of ease into it. I think it's kind
God,
of
it's so
brilliant.
hard. We want like results
Yeah, we
now.
do.
Like I want to feel it and like, and yeah, because like putting on your running shoes doesn't accomplish anything. That's not getting you any healthier. But like it's, I think having that long-term focus of like, no, it's my goal here is to build this habit,
Mhm.
and have it long term. And I think it's so important, but so hard to do. Like
It is so hard to do. And I think it's just accepting, I mean, an aspect of it is just accepting the mentality and the mental framework piece of anything we try to do physically. Like it's not, yes, like putting the running shoes on only every morning doesn't physically change like what you're doing, but you are starting a new mental habit, and
Yeah,
you
that's good.
are building a new mental framework, preparing yourself for something you're going to be doing. And I think like that's a piece we separate and forget about all the time. And it's just as necessary as the physical piece, because they're
Totally.
not separate. I mean, it's all together. But our mentality often pulls those apart. And I think that's a not a good or bad, just is. And how do you deal with it? I think this is one of the ways. And in being supportive of yourself, gracious of yours when you don't show up as you
Mm.
desired, in a way, forgiving of that, and move on to the next day. Like
Yeah,
checkbox shows back up. You get another chance to check it. Like, it's okay.
yeah.
And yeah.
I think that brings us back like that whole idea of accountability. And so like I think the goal with accountability is that, I mean, it's just that if you include somebody else in your goals, like your chances are a lot higher you're going to achieve them. I think there was a Harvard study about it, something about if you like had a goal versus wrote down your goal versus like wrote it down and shared it with someone, like the chances that you were successful. And I mean, obviously, like the people that wrote it down and shared it with someone were way more likely.
Hmm.
How do you see that like playing out like in your life about accountability, and how do you like do that successfully without like, I don't know, the other person, like, I don't know, I guess for, yeah, accountability, sometimes it's like, I don't know, the cop or someone that's like checking in on you,
Right.
but that's not what we want. So how do you see that playing out?
That's a great question. I think um, there's a few different things come up, and like this is a very personal response because that's what it is. But I am very social, also, so I think like that plays into, for me, the functionality of doing something accountable like this with another person. Just the ability to have that relationship there, and someone else being included and um, participating in knowing what my desires are, and whether I'm heading toward them or not. I think an aspect of that, in as much as setting down and like forming these different programs and systems, is just the energy and effort toward it. It's actually spending the time clarifying, uh, stating what it is you want to do, where it is you want to go,
Mm,
and conveying that to another human. Like all of those things, even outside of what's happening in that relationship, are very building pieces, because each one of those times, like you've had to reconnect with what it is you're about, what it is you
mm,
want to do in life, where you're going. You've had to clarify that enough to put it on paper. You've had to clarify that enough to state it to another human. Like all of those are really amazing opportunities for you to show up for yourself, for you to show up for your own desires and your own passions. And I think like that's why this can be so incredible. Not, as you
mm.
said, not because it's someone else in your life making sure you're doing the things that you're supposed to doing, but because you are internally driven to show up for what you care about, because you're internally
Mm.
driven to care about where you are and where you're headed. And that's where the power in this lays.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's so important to have, I don't, yeah, it's just, I think community and having those people around you is just so important. And that's, I think, I don't, yeah, it's so easy to like, I don't know, keep our goals to ourselves, and it's a lot less scary. Like it's
Hmm.
scary to share your goals and to put it out there. And but I think, I don't know, it's like with anything that's scary in life, like I want to push into it and say like, okay, that's it's a sign I need to embrace that thing. And like where's that fear coming from? Why do I feel that way? And so I think that's accountability. It's so important to like, or it's just having people in your life that support you in that and they're not there to like, yeah, call you out or like make you feel shitty because you didn't do it. Like they're there to like ask you like, is this really a goal you want? Like, then yeah, why didn't you do it? Like, not because they want you to feel bad, but because I don't, yeah, we're coaches for each other, helping each other like find our whys and understand our emotions and what's going on.
I think it's amazing and just a neat opportunity where we can bolster each other and we can show up for each other in a neat way.
Mm.
And it's important to be, conscious of who we do that with. Like it's not a fit with everyone. It's we don't all have the same goals and desires, and I don't think you necessarily need to have the same goals as someone you're being accountable with outside of how they view life and their framework. Like I think if they are someone who really feels that they are motivated by guilt and shame, like that's not a great connection for me, because I
That's
don't
not
feel
gonna
like
work.
those things motivate me very well. I feel like they're they hold me back and they're more harmful to me. And so like finding someone else who is more about the present and growth and opportunity and abundance in that, in the moment, that's a better energetic connection of someone for me to do accountability with. And so I think it, as with everything in life, like your setup and framework in that matters too. And these systems are still useful alone. I mean, they don't have to be with
Absolutely.
someone else. I think that's a really neat um, piece of this, is that they are so able to be self-regulated and
Mm.
to show up for yourself. I would just really encourage people to try to find someone else to do that with, because I think there is an
Mhm.
added piece there that's really hard to um, uh, I don't know, it's really hard to state like what is gained from there verbally. I guess it's just not hard to put into words, I guess is what I'm saying. I think the potential benefit from doing this with another human.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it depends for everyone. Some people it's motivating and helpful, and some people maybe that's not where you're at. But I don't know. For me, I know, yeah, that I think having somebody else that's a partner with me in it, I think is the important aspect that is, yeah, just helps me accomplish these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're super interested in hearing from all of you, just like ways that um, this has been helpful in your life, having systems, how you've set up systems, what they've done in your life, how it's changed, things you've learned from that, chosen not to do again. All of
Mhm.
those things I think are really, really interesting, because we all are unique in that there's subtleties and differences in doing all this that are going to be very important for each of us, but there's also a ton of similarities. I think we all have
Yeah.
way more in common than we have that is separating or dissimilar. And so excited to see where others are growing in this way, and what we can learn from that, because I think it's the reason this even came up for Dan and I is just there's a bunch of things in our life that we're not currently doing that we want to do. And there's places that we want to be heading in the future. And how do we get there? And so this is one of the meaningful things that we came up with. And so we just wanted to talk about it and see who else is engaging in this way and what we can learn from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'd be so fun to hear from other people. What's your morning routine, or maybe it's your night routine, or midday or something, or I don't know, however accountability looks in your life. I think this is kind of how we've done it, but we're both, I don't know, we have a lot of similar background. We're both in the same industry. So sure, like the information we're reading and getting is somewhat limited. So I'd love to hear about other people, how they're doing it. So yeah, feel free to share with us, reach out, let us know what you do. How do you stay accountable? How do you accomplish your goals? Yeah, I'd love to hear other people's systems, would be really cool.
Same here. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dan. As always, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, great talking with you. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Sounds good.
I have to still record.